We'd like to get started if we could, please. If everybody could take a seat. We're counting on a lot of divine intervention here tonight. So, anyway, welcome to the Hudson Community Foundation's first Hudson Spark Award. I'm Meg Heaton, a member of the Board of Directors. And for those of you who may not be familiar with the Hudson Community Foundation, we are about to begin our 16th year. It was started in 1999 with a small group of Hudson residents, many names that you would recognize, looking for a way to provide for the future needs of our community. Today, the foundation has more than $3 million in assets, including individual donor funds and a community needs fund. Through both donor-advised funds and the community needs funds, the foundation continues to provide support to organizations and groups from throughout the area who are working hard and in many different ways to enhance life in Hudson. In recent years, the foundation has also undertaken some new initiatives to address issues of concern in the community and to stimulate a community response, specifically the devastating, too often tragic impact of heroin, opiates, and other drugs on families in the community, and the increase of mental health concerns that can sometimes lead to attempts and deaths by suicide. These forms were the beginning of the foundation's commitment to doing its part to address important issues in the community and to keep the conversation about them going. Project Spark is the foundation's newest initiative. The foundation developed Project Spark looking for the next best idea for Hudson from anyone in the community. The winner will receive up to $20,000 provided by the Community Foundation and their donors to fund the project. We were very pleased to receive 9 very impressive proposals this first time out, and we are very glad to have you with us to select one from what our board of directors thinks are the 3 best ideas submitted. We believe that any of these 3 projects will enhance life in our community, but the choice is up to you. That's the spark we're looking for tonight. The finalists will each make a presentation about their spark idea. Following the presentations, one of which is being made electronically, ballots will be distributed to you and you will be asked to vote for one of the projects. So, with that said, we're going to begin with Terry Gulbranson representing her spark idea and that of the Hudson School District. Terry?
Is it? Okay. I think it's on. Hi, my name is Terry Gulbranson, and I am the Special Education Program Specialist for the Hudson School District. It's a really long title, but what it means is that I work with our students, our families, and all of our staff for our students that have special education needs throughout the entire Hudson School District. First off, before I start presenting, I want to thank each and every one of you for coming and being here this evening. The continued commitment that the community has to ideas and values that challenge progress in the community is something that continues to make me appreciate how lucky I am to be a part of the Hudson School District and the larger Hudson community. So what is our spark idea? Well, in a few short words, we want to strengthen community partnerships focused on addressing the mental health needs of our students attending the Hudson School District. Students come through our school doors every day, bringing with them a range of mental health concerns that far outweigh their backpacks or the academic rigors of their day. Student mental health can directly relate to the academic success our students have, positive peer and adult interactions, as well as an overall school climate. A little bit of background. In a recent Wisconsin high school survey, approximately 55% of students surveyed reported that their mental health was not good on 1 or more days over the past month. In the same survey, over 24% of students reported feeling sad or hopeless for 2 or more weeks over the past year. Think about how that affects your day as a student or as an adult walking into a classroom where you need to be engaged in learning and gaining knowledge to be an independent and successful 21st learner. Between 60% and 90% of the students with mental health needs do not get any mental health service or support. Of those that do, almost 75% receive the services in a school setting. Now, unfortunately, schools are not designed or intended to have a primary mission of providing mental health services. Our pupil services staff, such as counselors, school psychologists, and social workers, we're not therapists, nor should we be providing therapy to the students in our walls. Therefore, we decided it was essential for schools to establish partnerships with community agencies that could provide the mental health services to our students. And reiterating that importance, that improved student mental health promotes better learning. By addressing a student's mental health, we can associate positive school outcomes by increased academic achievement, decreased problem behaviors, and improved school and classroom climate. School mental health promotion also helps create a better learning environment overall for all students, and school mental health programs and services improve teaching conditions. Thinking like a teacher, my first job is to engage the students in the curriculum and the passion that I promote in my classroom. But when I have students with mental health disorders, I'm not able to engage them 100% in what they're learning. I'm not helping them be a successful, independent 21st learner until we meet those mental health needs straight on and they can come to my classroom engaged and ready to learn. So what have we done? What have we done to try to meet the needs of our students, and why are we asking for the Spark Grant? So in the 2013-2014 school year, Student Services Department of Hudson researched models of school-based mental health services, and we selected Family Means as our partner in the community to provide those services. It was really important to Hudson School District to choose a provider that could reach the maximum number of families and students. And through our research, we found that the Family Means would never turn away a family or a student that needs the mental health services. That means for our students that aren't on insurance or can't access the services due to transportation, economic needs, etc., Family Means won't turn them down and will find a way to provide those services to students. We knew that that important point would be a vital part of the success to the program that we have going on at Hudson. So in the 2014-2015 school year, a pilot was implemented at 3 of our Hudson schools. We implemented at EP Rock Elementary, Hudson Middle School, and Hudson High School. Nearly 50 students were referred during that time. Some of the students' concerns when they were getting therapy included stress and anxiety, grief and loss, depression, peer relationships, school issues, family issues, and drug and alcohol use. The therapists worked in collaboration with parents and students to develop a treatment plan, and frequent check-ins were throughout the rest of the school year. So we took results from what happened in our pilot. The student survey results came out really well. The majority of students who received the services felt their issue or concerns were better. 71% reported that they were better or a lot better at coping with their concern. Parents. Out of the parents that answered the electronic survey, all of the parents believed their child was coping better with the issues after the services. That's a huge statement if parents are seeing differences in their students. And then we can't forget about our district and what happened to the overall district. Over 90% of our staff believe students had benefited from the mental health services. Outcomes that directly related to school performance were also measured. There was a 40% reduction in absences and a 20% reduction in discipline. Additionally, 64% of our students receiving services at the elementary school showed an increase in reading to an at or above grade level. That's huge. Hudson has very high expectations academically, and this just proves when we meet our students' mental health needs, we can help them soar academically. 67% of our middle school students improved their grade point averages, and 60% of our high school students improved their overall grade point averages as well. So based on the success of our pilot and the positive outcomes, the Student Services Department was received approval from the Board of Education to continue our program into the 2015-2016 school year. And they approved us to get it up to all 8 schools by contributing $25,000 towards our program expansion. We also determined that we would continue our partnership with Family Means. This has been such a win-win for our district and our community and their families. By partnering with this community agency, our families get services available when school isn't in session. So for breaks and over summer, their services can still be done right at Family Means within the community site. There's easier access to the comprehensive system of care, and our staff is more knowledgeable about community resources where our families can get to it easier. We are so excited that we've been able to start the 2015-2016 school year working together with students, families, Family Means, and school district staff on a common goal to provide the best system of support for student success and well-being. And these are our costs, projected costs, and how the numbers lay out. So with the so right now in 2015-2016, we are able to get services out to 5 of the district's 8 buildings. So we are missing some buildings. To the maximum extent possible, as you can see, we use a lot of insurance reimbursement. The Hudson School District pays Family Means for the cost of services not reimbursed through insurance, such as attendance at IEP meetings, professional development through the therapists to our school staff to have them be more knowledgeable about mental health, some wraparound services, and so much more. As you can see from the graphic here, the total program cost when expenses are taken from the revenue is $45,000. With the contribution of the Board of Education's $25,000, we still are in need of $20,000. The current agreement allows us to expand the program into 8 of our schools. With the Spark Grant, we would be able to immediately provide services to students in all 8 of our schools in Hudson. I want to thank you very much for your time and your consideration tonight. We at Hudson Schools take pride in being part of such an amazing community. We look forward to working with you and your families for an overall commitment to the well-being and well-roundedness of all of our students and community members. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Next up, Christopher Mick.
And then do I have to just go forward on that, or is that? Excellent. Thank you. Awesome turnout. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. I know it's a beautiful night, and some of you would rather be barbecuing, but I appreciate you coming out to listen to the proposals this evening. This is one of the things I love about Hudson, with how much everybody cares about their community, so thank you. My name is Christopher Mick. You may have guessed by the blue flight suit that I run Space St. Croix. This is one of our programs we did for our pilot programs last year. And I've been in the Hudson area since 2003. I lived in Chicago before that. I am a 2-time graduate of the United States Space Camp in Huntsville, Alabama, level 1 and level 2 in the mid-'80s. I won't give an exact year, but this is my original flight suit. So my father's still impressed I can zip it up. He says, if you can zip it up, you're doing okay. But my father was in the Navy. He's an aviator, an instructor. He also flew on the Hurricane Hunter Squadron, was a meteorologist with the Navy. I'm a former college educator. I've taught here in this area at IPR, IFP Minnesota, McNally Smith College in Chicago. I taught at Columbia College Chicago and at the University of Tampa in Florida at the college level, doing film and video production primarily. That's kind of my training and background at the college level. And huge space enthusiast, kind of goes back to my childhood. I grew up in Northern California, about half an hour away from the NASA Ames Research Center. And when I was growing up, they were doing wind tunnel testing on a new program they had going called the Space Shuttle. So they had huge wind tunnels at Ames, and they were testing scale models of the Space Shuttle to see how the wind acted on the wings, how it performed when it was in the stack with the rockets, how it would pull away from its ferry plane, how it would handle performance landing with no power, just as a glider. So I was doing all I could to bug my dad to take me down there every time I could get to negotiate with good grades or chores to be able to see the wind tunnel testing for the space shuttle down there. I also have 2 children in the Hudson school system. I've got one in elementary and one as a sophomore at the Hudson High School. How Space St. Croix came to be. My video production company I mentioned got commissioned to do a job for the state of Illinois, promoting doing short web-based videos and theatrical videos for a company called Mad Science, which some of you may have heard of. They've done some programs here at the Hudson Library. And at the same time, back up here, when I wasn't shooting in Illinois, for that, I was working for the Metropolitan Library Service Agency, or MELSA. I was teaching area library students how to make short videos and films, because MELSA was encouraging participation in the library system, and they thought if they did a film festival competition, they might attract some kids to do stories based on any of the books they loved at the library. So the fusion of what became Space St. Croix kind of grew out of these twofold experiences. I saw how well Mad Science was getting kids excited about concepts with marshmallows and styrofoam and different chemical mixes and reactions. And then I also saw how excited the kids would get communicating their message, working on something that they were in charge of, making a short film and telling a story, and the excitement that brought. So this kind of fused together to say, why could I not bring that to the Hudson area? Because kids get excited about science, and I think kids have a potential to get excited by space, but they don't have a whole lot of opportunity for that in this area just because of the geographic location. I noticed after moving up from Chicago that there wasn't a nearby Air Force base, nearby NASA Center, any aerospace industry, any real planetarium of note. So I just saw that there wasn't really a built-in methodology for kids to get a speaker related to that area or do a field trip with something related to that. So I've got one stat for the night. I've only got one in there. But that's the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that in 2018 there's going to be about 9 million STEM-related jobs, and that number is just projected to keep increasing as the years go by. A lot of private industry is now getting into the space program. Some of you may have heard about Boeing and SpaceX, Blue Origin. These companies have been commissioned by NASA to take over the low Earth orbit manned spaceflight program, because NASA's trying to move on to do trickier things like getting us to Mars. So in their 50 years of experience getting us up to low Earth orbit, they think they've figured that out, and private companies have figured that out, and they can turn that responsibility over to companies like Boeing and SpaceX, which have been commissioned with their new vehicles to get astronauts to and from the space station. So they don't have to worry about those duties anymore, and they can focus on other aspects. As I mentioned before, my slide a little bit out of order there, I just talked about kind of what the resources are in the area, just kind of noting that there wasn't anything with nearby access to kind of get kids motivated and excited by what was going on. So what I would do for these programs, and we did a lot with our first year pilot programs, is sharing that passion that I have for it. I think some of the best teachers I remember were the ones that got you excited about what their subject matter, even if you weren't into it. If they were really excited about it, it was contagious, and you kind of got into it. And that passion kind of comes across. I wish you could all see when I take a space shuttle thermal tile and heat it with a torch, and it gets about 2,000 degrees, you kind of have a glowing orange ball like a miniature sun in your hand. But with a thermal tile, it dissipates heat so quickly that I take off the glove and I can hold it with my bare fingertips. Well, there's an orange glowing 2,000 degree ball in the center of the tile. That gets a pretty incredible reaction. It's not magic, it's science, but kids want to figure that out. They don't know how I can do that. They don't get what's going on with the science behind it. But sometimes something like that gets the light bulb to go off, that asks questions, they want to know. They bug you after the presentation. I get emails like, I want to understand how that works. And that was just the engineers that developed the thermal protection system for the shuttle. There's a million other of these things that we do with these programs, trying to reach kids in different ways to get that light bulb moment. Who benefits? It's the Hudson community at large. With our pilot programs last year, we reached about 900 kids in total. Going forward, we wanted to try to expand that on the incredible feedback we got to reach all the kids in the school district, 5,000 plus. So breaking specific categories down, we have a K through 5 program We did very hands-on workshop, targeted things for their age group that were very successful. Middle school students kind of sells itself because, again, if you could see the faces when I share them this, NASA's current projections are that we're going to get our first orbital missions to Mars by the 2030s. So when I talk to middle school kids, I tell them that they are going to be, their classmates are going to be the first astronauts to walk on Mars, to orbit Mars. That's an amazing thing because they have ownership then. I'm not talking about what I did or what their parents did or what some astronauts that might be visiting do. It's their generation. It's their age group. They know that they're going to be the ones that are going to be doing these missions. So they get very excited about that because it's to them. You're not talking about something abstract or historical. High school students, we had a very successful program. We tied into their STEM speaker series and brought an actual rocket scientist out to speak to their STEM students. You can't always introduce somebody like that, but it's pretty cool to do. So finding the colleges, the resources, the programs they can enter at the high school level, such as student experiments to the space station and whatnot. We kind of hook up high school kids with that information so they can find out about careers they may not even known about that will tie to the field they were interested in. I had 2 high school students that were kind of not super into the program, and I asked what they were interested in. They said they liked coding, writing code, designing computer applications. And I said, NASA needs you. They create virtual environments for crafts they haven't physically made yet, for missions they haven't physically done yet, because they need to work out, is this going to work? Will these things fit where we're putting them? Can people successfully navigate through these structures? So they're very excited to hear that because NASA's hiring programmers left and right to help make these things a reality. The breakdown for what we did budget-wise. I was really excited when I heard about the Spark Grant because it seemed like a perfect marriage of what I was trying to do and what the Spark Grant could enable us to do. Because based on our pilot program expenses, we came in about in the $5,000 plus range. So with looking at expanding that to the rest of the school district, we'd be able to operate for 3 solid years with the Spark Grant. And then that would also leave us some money to file our 501c3 paperwork to kind of become a nonprofit, which would open us up to direct donations to other grants we could go for. And some of the pilot programs, I was talking to representatives of Marvin Windows and Doors and 3M. They were very receptive and excited what we were doing, but they're saying if you're a nonprofit, it's much easier for us to work with you in the future on that. Some of the no-cost things that we were able to utilize to make the program even that much more successful were, I'm in a unique situation right now that I'm trying to take full advantage of and that I can dedicate a lot of time to this enterprise. So my time to be donated for the work involved. We recently my daughter started a space club at the high school that's looking for spreading the word and getting more members involved in that. We found some great community volunteers last year doing our pilot programs, and we want to maintain contact with those and even attract more with the publicity of something like the Spark Grant would allow us to do. And then leveraging some of the free programs I was able to network with people I'd had in contact over the last few years. We had the Minnesota Amateur Space Modelers Association, which is pictured right here. If you can see our rocket launch at Lakefront Park, we launched about 30 rockets there of different sizes and structures. Got a great reaction from the crowd. They came out for free. They were very happy just to talk about their membership opportunities if anybody wanted to join their rocketry club. But they gave hands-on informational discussions to the kids and the families that were there. They did all the rocket launches, and they came up, set up, and struck it, and the whole thing for no cost to Space St. Croix, just to get the word out. We had solar system ambassadors, lived in different areas in Minnesota. That are science teachers and have been certified by the National Jet Propulsion Laboratory to speak on different solar system subjects, and they came out for free as well. It was just the legwork of scheduling them, knowing what the program would be, and arranging to pick them up and get them to the venue they were doing. The Explorer Dome was funded in part by the Willow River Parent Group. We brought that out to Willow River Elementary. It's from the University of Minnesota's Bell Museum, and it kind of does traveling planetarium shows. So all the kids at Willow got to see the projected track for the New Horizons Pluto flyby, which hadn't quite happened yet, things like where the Voyager 1 track for leaving the solar system is, different images from the Hubble Space Telescope, etc. 2016 programming going forward, as I mentioned, expanding it to all the schools. Additional ideas and some of the research we had for other opportunities that could really have an impact. There's one nonprofit I found called Galileo Scopes. They're a nonprofit, so they make a very machined, refined handheld telescope which is a price point if you order in volume, which is very cost effective for doing it. That would be one of the things that would be, I think, a great program going forward, where these kids would be given their own telescope that they get to keep and take home. I thought of these guys the other night, like 2 nights ago. I don't know if any of you saw the supermoon eclipse, but I was just picturing like 300 kids all getting their own telescope to keep, and you'll share with their family and their friends watching that, and they can get to take that home and keep that to be theirs. Another one we looked at was the STEM shuttle, which I think some of you have heard of. I went out to Oshkosh for the air show, and the STEM shuttle was out there to do some research on what they offer. And they've got this packed bus full of science integrated hands-on workstations for all the kids. So you get on one side of the bus, they have excellent, well-trained staff that all have science engineering backgrounds, and they take you through all the workstations, and then you exit the bus with your little certificate that you completed the STEM shuttle experience. That's another one that could be brought to one location in Hudson or go to several schools depending on the scheduling for that. So I talked about some of the example costs that we went through before in our pilot program. This is just kind of a quick breakdown on what some of the programs could be, like the Galileo scope, STEM shuttle, how things could be broken out. So this can all be kind of custom tailored depending on the audience, community events, what school it's at. If schools would partner on something, we do one day. There was some talk last year about doing a lot of our events out at EP Rock with the fields that were there, large fields for the rocket launches, and the sky viewing could be there and things like that. But we learned a lot in our pilot year. We found out about the insurance costs and about, again, EP Rock. It would be easier if we were a nonprofit to reserve that space. You kind of have to reserve it as a group. You can't just walk up as an individual and say you'd like to do that. So those are some things we learned to be more successful moving forward. And then Michael Soluri was nice enough to send out this quote. He was our keynote speaker. We brought out, if any of you attended the events, he spoke at Willow River Elementary, and then he also did a free event at the Phipps. We kept all our events free and open to the public to encourage participation and Q&A. But Michael did an outstanding book on the last space shuttle servicing mission of the Hubble Space Telescope. So he lived and trained with the astronauts and scientists preparing the tools for that mission for about 4 years. It took him to gather all the photos and documentation for the book. So it's an amazing book, and he came out and gave a really inspiring speech to the students at Willow, did a great book signing and Q&A and event at the Phipps later that evening. And he was really struck with my program because he said he was going all around the country. He was doing events at the Smithsonian Air and Space. He's in National Geographic, Time, and Newsweek. And he said out of the whole country, this was the only community he'd seen doing something like this, kind of a grassroots awareness to kind of build interest, build excitement in what was going on. And that's really that buzz. I know some of you remember the original Apollo program and the lunar landings and that kind of, just talking to somebody coming in, that it was on Life magazine every week and it was on the news every night, and you were excited and following the events. And with our pop culture and super media stream, some of that gets, I think, lost in the shuffle. And unless it's something really big like the Pluto flyby, there's not a lot of daily coverage of it. I was struck with one event with my daughter at the high school. Her friend was overseeing some of my space images, and she thought NASA wasn't really around anymore since the space shuttle had retired. She didn't think they were doing anything, and I'm like, I gotta change that. People have to know that NASA is around and is doing some pretty incredible stuff. So really appreciated the quote from Michael, and I tried to cram the whole universe into 10 minutes, so I don't know if I got there, but that was my presentation. So again, thank you for coming out. Really appreciate your support, all the comments. Thank you.
You should get extra points for fitting into something you did when you were 12. That sparked my attention. Our last presenter is going to come to us via a video production. Her name is Diane Vogler, and she's going to talk about her bee-bomb project.
Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Vogler. I want to apologize for not being here tonight. I'm actually starting my student orientation as a medical student to study naturopathic medicine at SENM in Tempe, Arizona. So before I get started to talk about my projects, I'd like to tell a little bit more about myself. I'm 22 years old and I've lived in Hudson for 9 years now. I graduated from Gustavus Adolphus College with a Bachelor in Arts in Biology and I also have a minor in studio arts. On my spare time, I love to dance, I love art, I love kayaking, and I love to be environmentally friendly and learn about different ways to be sustainable for the future. So let's get started. Today my project is called the Bee Project. It's a very simple idea, but I think it's very significant for the Hudson community. I'm going to tell you where I was inspired to create this project, what my project entails, and the logistics of how it would run if I were to receive this grant. So about a couple years ago, I ran across a TED Talk that was given by Marla Spivak. She's an entomology professor at the University of Minnesota. She gave a presentation called Why Bees Are Disappearing, and I was really interested in what she had to say. I learned that over half of the bee population has declined since the 1940s, and it's still declining today. You may ask, why does saving the bees matter? Bees are our largest pollinators of our fruits, vegetables, crops, and flowering plants, and without them, we do not have the food we are so used to having. As you see in some of the pictures on the left side, you see a grocery store that is full of the fruits and vegetables that we eat every day. But on the right side, without bees, you see a lot of the fruits and vegetables missing. Bees rely on flowering plants as a food resource, and so in return, it provides a pollination service to us. So why are bees dying off so quickly? So in the 1940s, we were introduced to insecticides and pesticides to use on our property, and that is one of the leading causes to bee death. So what happens is when we spray a field with these harsh chemicals, it gets taken up by the plants, and when bees land on them to use them as a food source, they also take up the chemicals. This makes them feel drunk, which makes them not able to make it home, and it also makes them immobile as well. Another huge problem is our new agricultural practices. In the olden days, it used to be small farms and gardens that had a wide variety of plants and flowers. And today, we take up large land and we plant one crop. We use corn or soybean. And another thing is our flowers landscapes, because a lot of our buildings get in the way, and also natural diseases. So because of all these facts, my great idea is to use an adopt-a-spot method and involve the whole community, whether that's families, organizations, schools, businesses, whoever wants to participate, to help plant native wildflowers in designated locations throughout Hudson. This can also include land that you may have at home. You can opt in to also participate in this project. But I believe planting a variety of native wildflowers to this region and also agreeing to not using pesticides and insecticides in these areas will help, first and foremost, assist in the global effort to increase bee populations. So I created here a little visual representation for you guys. Basically what it is the orange is all of Hudson. The green shapes are different shapes and sizes of land that's offered up through the Hudson community. This is public space. This could be the sides of roads, at intersections, in parks, and that would be areas that are adoptable. We also have blue designated areas. This would be like our organizations or families that already have land that would like to participate. For example, the Hudson Hospital has a garden. They're more than welcome to opt into this project. Each person that participates will have a sign that will mark their area showing that they are participating, and it will also show that no pesticides are being used in these areas. The money from this grant would help to purchase these bee bombs created from Plantables, a small business located right in our downtown Hudson. They created a product that is basically clay balls that have wildflower seeds that are native to our area that help to attract bee life. Jim and Karen Schreiber, the owners of Plantables, are big proponents of saving the bees. And so this is a perfect company to work with to buy the seeds to help spread across Hudson. Another important piece is that these seeds that we're using have gone through extensive research through the UW River Falls. They're able to survive in our area, and they're meant to do what they're supposed to do, which are to attract bees. Another really big important thing that is really close to my heart is a positive element to work with a local business that is providing jobs to adults in the community that have special needs. I've actually researched all the statistics, and it says according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 17% of working age people with disabilities are employed on average. And so it's so important that we include these people into our community as well. So here's a picture of the bee bombs that we'd be using in our project. And I wanted to say that I really believe that this bee mission is not only addressing our environmental concern, but it's also addressing a humanitarian effort to provide more hours and more available jobs to the disabled citizens of Hudson. So it's a win-win for everyone. So let's talk about the logistics of how this project will run. Depending on the size of land that each participant has, we will put you into one of the 3 categories to receive the correct number of bee bombs. We have worker bees, the bee's bees, and the largest of all, queen bees. Each person that participates will have a kit. It will include the bee bomb packages, instructions for planting and maintaining plots, and of course signage. And I believe that the perfect time to do this would be the spring of 2016. That's when plants are the best to be planted. So, yeah. So let's talk about the project budget. I have about $11,000 that I want to put towards bee bombs. This is an estimate based on providing these bee bombs for about 4 to 5 years, maybe even more, depending on how many people participate. It's a lot of bombs, but basically we use about 5,000 bombs per year. This will help to get the project going. Once we have flowers planted, they'll start to naturally grow on themselves, and we'll just be able to maintain it for the following years. We also have a small budget for packaging and printing materials for the kits. We also have money going towards signs that will be allowed to put at each area for people that are participating. We also have a little bit going towards advertising and marketing to get the word out about our project. Any of the remaining money can be used towards more bee bombs or whatever else is needed, because this is kind of a give or take depending on how many people are doing the project. I do want to make a clarification. All grant money will be used towards providing the resources to create this bee project through an adopt-a-spot method, and it's not to fund wages at Pantables. So here's a little summary of what the outcomes will be if you guys choose me for our project in the Hudson community. I believe we will have supported the efforts to increase bee populations. We will positively spread awareness and be examples to surrounding communities, showing that we're more sustainable and more environmentally friendly. We will have beautified Hudson's landscapes with perennial plants native to the area that's long-term for community bonding. We also provide support and collaboration to those people in our community that have special needs through the small business panels. So that is it. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come hear about my bee project. I hope that you'll consider putting your vote towards me tonight. It would mean the world to me to be able to take something that I've created in words and actually put them into actions. So have a beautiful evening, guys. Bye-bye.
Well, this has been a really unique evening, so I think we should give all of our presenters one more round of applause. Thank you. Wonderful, diverse choices here. So we get to the point of the voting tonight. So we're members of the board are going to be passing around the ballots. We'd like you to vote in the next few minutes to vote for just one of the projects. I'd like to clarify that there was some talk and some consideration given to online voting, but in order to protect the integrity of the vote, we decided that having people come and vote in person was the best way that we could do it. So we would ask you, there are pencils in the pews in front of you if you don't have a pen or pencil with you, but if you would feel free to vote vote now, and as soon as we collect them, we're going to send people into the back room to tabulate them. Oh, yeah, and on the ballot, you will notice that there is a place for your name, and the reason we put that was that if you feel comfortable doing it, it's certainly not required, but if you feel comfortable doing it, and that would be a way for us to put the Spark project, the person with the Spark project that you voted for, in touch with you in case you want to support the project on an ongoing basis. But feel free to either add your name or not add your name, that's totally up to you. Okay, so if everybody will vote, and then I will introduce our keynote speaker for the night. If you want to pass your ballots down, we will collect them. With the votes about collected, we're fortunate tonight to have one of the founders of the Hudson Community Foundation and one of the really exceptional people who've contributed so much to our community over the years in the form of Ken Heiser, the former president of Hudson's First National Bank, and the founder of the foundation, to talk about its mission and its impact on the community. The group that he started with was a merry band, if I might say so. He led them starting in 1999. The founding members also included Paul McGinnis, Steve Erickson, Mimi Fair, Susie Gilbert, Mark Garrity, Kevin Vance, David Brandt, Dwayne Bakke, Sam Carey, Roy Schoberg, C.R. Hackworthy, Ron Weiler, Peg Gagnon, and Kevin Hellman. So please welcome Ken Heiser.
A little tough on the equipment here. Thank you, Peg. Meg, sorry. Can everyone hear me okay? Good evening, everyone. I'm honored and thankful for the opportunity to speak about one of my favorite organizations, the Hudson Community Fund. The Community Foundation, as Meg mentioned, was started in 1999, but its parent was born about 5 years earlier, and that is the St. Croix Valley Community Foundation. It was back at about about this time of the year in 1995. I was in my office at the bank, and two people came walking in. One was Marilyn McCarty from WITC in Richmond. Many of you probably know her. And they were looking to start an organization in the St. Croix Valley called the St. Croix Valley Community Foundation. There was a group of people. Sarah Anderson from the Anderson Corporation was one of the key people that was involved, looking to create another source to support community activities. If you stop and just close your eyes for a second, for those of you, I think you're probably all from Hudson, and think what Hudson would be like if it weren't for the Phipps Center for the Arts, for the Christian Community Home, the YMCA, the Camp Y, the Hudson Hospital, the hockey arenas, and I can go on and on. Behind every one of those major projects and assets to this wonderful community were major givers, and those major givers were the Phipps Foundation, Anderson Corporation, the Anderson Foundation and their related foundations, and other businesses and generous contributors in the area. That just didn't happen. When something like that happens, it takes significant backing to get it going. But as the community in the valley was growing, the needs were getting greater, but the number of foundations weren't growing. We kept going back to the same pot, looking for help. And the thinking was, well, there are a lot of residents in the area, in the valley, that would like to be philanthropists. They might have $1 million, unlikely. They may have $100,000. They may have $10,000. They may have $1,000 that they would like to give back to make the community a better place to live, work, and play. But how do you go about doing this? And even if you had $1 million and want to create a foundation, there's a lot of work and expense to doing that. So the idea of creating a community foundation, when it was first brought up, I didn't even know what it was. But it's a community of donors. And at the time, they were looking for board members and individuals to go out and help spread the good word. And I said, I've got all I can handle right here at my desk and here in Hudson, and thanks for the honor, but I really need to pass. Well, 5 years later, wasn't 5 years later, they were back. This time, they were saying, you know, we found over the last few years since we got the organization started that we really needed more local participation, and what we'd like to do is create affiliates, and we'd like to have you consider seeing whether or not it's possible to create a community fund, a community foundation right here in Hudson. And to give you some added incentive, the Bremer Foundation has pledged $20,000 match. So if you can raise $20,000, you'll have $40,000 and you'll be off and running. Well, so with that, I said, well, let's see what we can do. And Hudson was a lot smaller town back then, but we knew who to contact, who might have some good ideas, good contacts, good suggestions. And we had several meetings. There were about 14 or 15 of us that decided that let's give this a try. We can do it. There shouldn't be any problem. And with that, the Hudson Community Foundation was founded. We had a founders club, and we asked people to step up and make a $10,000 pledge over 5 years, and they became the founders, and that's how we got started with the $40,000 plus right now we're somewhere over $3 million. The mission, if you look at it, it's on the website, and Meg talked about it earlier. So the first few years of 2000 plus, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, how often we're going to meet, where we're going to meet, what is our mission going to be? How are we going to go about this? We don't want to go door to door and raise money and compete for the very organizations that we're trying to help. So how do we do this? So the first formative years, that was going on. But in the last few years, the organization has gotten into much deeper areas where there's been some real significant social needs in the community. One of the first major programs was the suicide prevention program, then the heroin awareness mailing, and then the Healing Together Vigil, and most recently the heroin follow-up program, and now the Spark Project. What a wonderful idea. It takes someone to get these things started. Well, if you stop and look at the organizations we talked about, or I talked about, they all started out small. But they grew and they developed and they expanded, and it was because of generosity of people like yourself who said, yeah, here's my $100 or here's my $1,000. Let's make this happen. And it begins to grow and begins to develop. So it's a matter of a project of building a community of donors. And one of the, recently, I don't know if many of you are aware, but Milwaukee Public Television was just in Hudson last week, and they spent 3 or 4 days here doing some filming and interviewing people. and they were just blown away by what this community had to offer. So now I'll set your calendars for April 7th, and their theme behind it was Hudson being a better place to live, work, and play. And the Community Foundation is helping make that all possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken, very much. It's always good to hear from you and get some perspective on things. We do have a winner. To make the presentation for tonight is the board president of the Hudson Community Foundation, Ryan Carey.
Thank you everyone for coming. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to attend our first event here for Spark. Also want a special thanks to Meg Heaton for emceeing the event. I think she did a wonderful job. Let's have a hand for Meg. Also a thank you to Ken Heiser for the great remarks and for being our keynote speaker. Another hand for Ken. And finally, to the church, the First Presbyterian Church, Dick Whitcomb, a former board president of ours and a former board member, for opening the doors here and letting us use this nice facility. This church is always welcoming to the community events, and we appreciate your time as well for running the program here this evening. So, thank you. And last but not least, to the three finalists, thank you very much for your presentations. I think looking around the room this evening and watching people, I think people were really paying attention before they made their decision, which was very important to our board that people be present here this evening to hear what these people had to say. So thank you to the three finalists for your terrific presentations. We tabulated your votes, we counted them in the back, and I am very happy to report that the winner of this first annual Spark grant in the amount of up to $20,000 is B-Bombs, Danielle Vogler. Thank you to Terry Gulbranson for presenting on behalf of the school district, and Christopher Mick for the Space St. Croix concept. The nice thing about the presentations here today and the other applications, that's not the end of the road for them, of course. We have donor advised fund holders and others that may very well choose to support those organizations, and we as a board are prepared to keep them fully engaged with our organization to see to it that they have opportunities as well to let their programs flourish. I would like to invite Danielle up here to talk, but she's not here. Her mother is here, Debbie, which she might have a word to say. I guess that would not surprise me, right, Debbie?
On behalf of Danielle, who really would have liked to have been here, I actually flew her home this weekend for Dancing with the Stars, and if she could have been here yesterday, she could have presented to you live, but she had to be back today, as she said, for her orientation. She's been passionate about this idea for quite some time. We met with Dean Knutson actually a year ago to talk to him about putting wildflowers actually be in the center of the highways. And we're from Indiana, and we thought it would be really cool to have wildflowers from Wisconsin all the way to Indiana. So then when the Spark project came available, she said, Mom, I want to do something with the bee bombs. I want to request something like that. And she said, how can I do this? And I said, Danielle, you have to do the Adopt-A-Spot. And we did this back in Indiana with the Tri Kappa sorority that I was in. And it really is a positive thing. Everybody can get involved in our community, and we can pick different spots and we can beautify them, and we'll add the bombs. And if you want to add hostas or other flowers or things that'll attract the bees, that'll be a really neat thing. But she will be home in April, and hopefully we'll have a bee bomb launch party for everyone. And when she's not here to keep executing this, there's always her mom. So, and I should add, I never wear a ball cap but you do anything to support your children, don't you? Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Also, one last thank you is to all of our board members here today. If you wouldn't mind standing up real quick. Thank you for all your hard work. And I've been on a church altar here and I haven't burst into flames yet, so I'm going to wrap this up before it happens. But we do have refreshments in the room back here. We have some sparkling cider and some cookies, so please join us in there for a few more minutes to celebrate Danielle Vogler and her win, and the other applicants as well. So thanks again for coming, everyone.